The transport ship landed with a heavy thud on the metal platform. Commander Jake stepped out, his military boots echoing across the space station's floor. He had traveled 3 months to reach this distant outpost, and he wasn't happy about it. This diplomatic meeting felt like a waste of his time. Jake was known throughout Earth's military as the best warrior they had. He had won every battle he fought. His soldiers respected him. His enemies feared him. When Earth needed someone to secure a military alliance with the alien race called the Zephyrians, they sent him. This should be quick, Jake thought to himself. Show them our weapons, make some promises, and get their ships to help us fight the enemy fleet that's been attacking our colonies. The space station was impressive, Jake had to admit. The walls seemed to glow with a soft blue light. Strange symbols moved across transparent screens everywhere he looked. The Zephyrian people were tall and graceful, with skin that had a slight purple tint. They wore flowing robes that seemed to shimmer like water. A Zephyrian official approached him. "Commander Jake, welcome to Station Aurora. We are honored by your visit." "Thank you," Jake replied, checking his watch. "When can I meet with your military commander? I have important matters to discuss." The official's expression changed slightly. "Actually, Commander, you will be meeting with Princess Kira. She will handle all negotiations." Jake frowned. A princess? He had expected to meet with a battle-tested general or admiral, someone who understood war and could make real decisions about military support. Not some royal family member who probably spent her days attending fancy parties. "I think there's been a mistake," Jake said. "I need to speak with whoever is in charge of your military forces. This is about war, not politics." "Princess Kira is in charge, Commander," the official said firmly. "She has been leading our defense strategies for the past 5 years. Jake sighed. This was going to be more complicated than he thought. Royal families often put their children in important positions just because of their bloodline, not because they had any real skills. He would have to be polite, but he was already planning to ask for a meeting with the real decision-makers. They walked through several corridors filled with amazing technology. Jake saw weapons he didn't recognize and screens showing star maps of the entire galaxy. Despite his annoyance, he was impressed by what these aliens had built. Finally, they entered a large room with a curved ceiling that showed the stars outside. In the center sat Princess Kira, and Jake's heart sank immediately. The princess was in some kind of floating chair. Her legs didn't seem to work properly. She was young, maybe in her 20s by human standards, with the same purple-tinted skin as the other Zephyrians. Her hair was silver and seemed to move on its own, flowing around her face like she was underwater. But what really caught Jake's attention was that she looked fragile. Her arms were thin, and she moved slowly. This was supposed to be the military leader he was negotiating with? A disabled princess who looked like she had never seen a real battle? "Commander Jake," Princess Kira said, her voice soft but clear. "Welcome to our home. I have been looking forward to meeting Earth's greatest warrior." Jake forced a smile. "Thank you, Princess. It's an honor to meet you." He paused, trying to think of a polite way to ask his question. "I was wondering if perhaps we could also arrange a meeting with your military commanders. I have some technical matters that might be easier to discuss with someone who has battlefield experience." The princess tilted her head slightly, studying him. "I am the military commander, Jake. All our defense forces report to me." Of course," Jake said quickly. "I just meant that sometimes it helps to have multiple perspectives. Maybe someone who has actually been in combat could join our discussions." He glanced around the room at the other Zephyrians present. Surely one of them was the real military leader. The princess was probably just here for ceremonial reasons to make the meeting seem more important. Princess Kira was quiet for a moment. In front of her was a strange device that looked like a mixture of a computer and artwork. Streams of light flowed across its surface, and symbols appeared and disappeared constantly. She moved her fingers over it, and Jake assumed she was just playing some kind of game or checking messages. "Commander, she finally said. "Tell me about the enemy fleet that has been attacking your colonies." Jake straightened up, glad to finally talk about something he understood. "They call themselves the Void Fleet. Black ships that appear out of nowhere, attack quickly, then disappear. They've hit 12 of our outer colonies in the past 6 months. We need your ships to help us hunt them down and destroy them." "And what is your current strategy?" Princess Kira asked, still moving her fingers over the strange device. Jake explained his plans in detail. He would use Earth's fastest ships to chase the enemy. When they found the Void Fleet, they would attack. With everything they had. It was simple, direct, and had worked in every war Earth had ever fought. As he talked, Jake noticed that Princess Kira wasn't really paying attention. She kept looking at her device instead of at him. This confirmed what he had suspected. She didn't really understand military matters. She was probably just going through the motions until the real commanders could take over. "That sounds like a solid plan," Princess Kira said when he finished. "Very straightforward." Jake didn't like the way she said straightforward. It sounded almost like she was making fun of him, but he pushed the feeling aside. He needed this alliance, even if he had to deal with an inexperienced princess first. "Princess," he said, "I hope you understand how serious this situation is. The Void Fleet isn't just attacking random targets. They're moving closer to our home systems. If we don't stop them soon, millions of people could die." "I understand perfectly, Commander," Princess Kira replied. "War is never simple, and the consequences of failure are always terrible." Something in her voice made Jake look at her more carefully. For just a moment, he thought he saw something in her eyes, not the innocent look of someone who had never seen battle, but something deeper. Something that looked almost like experience? But then she looked back at her device, and Jake dismissed the thought. What could this disabled princess possibly know about real warfare? She had probably never even left this space station. The meeting continued for another hour, with Jake explaining Earth's military capabilities and the princess asking questions that seemed too simple. He found himself growing more frustrated. They were wasting time with these basic discussions while his people were dying. Finally, Jake decided to be more direct. "Princess, with all due respect, these decisions are too important for delay. Could we perhaps schedule a meeting with your top military advisors tomorrow? People who have actually commanded ships in battle?" Princess Kira looked at him steadily. "Commander Jake, I am the person who commands our ships in battle. I have been doing so for 5 years. Every decision about our military forces comes through me." "But surely you have advisors with combat experience who could—" "Commander," Princess Kira interrupted gently, "I think there may be some misunderstanding about my role here. Perhaps we should continue this discussion tomorrow, after you have had time to rest from your journey." Jake felt his face getting hot. He was being dismissed by a princess who clearly didn't take him seriously. This whole trip was turning into a disaster. How was he supposed to secure a military alliance with people who put their disabled royalty in charge of their armies? As he was escorted to his quarters, Jake's mind was already working on a new plan. Tomorrow, he would find a way to speak directly with the real military commanders, the ones who actually knew how to fight. This princess might have a fancy title, but Jake was sure that somewhere on this station were the experienced warriors who made the real decisions. He had no idea how wrong he was about to discover he had been. Jake woke up to the sound of alarms blaring throughout the space station. Red lights flashed in his room, and he could hear people running in the corridors outside. He jumped out of bed and quickly put on his uniform. "What's happening?" he asked the first Zephyrian he saw in the hallway. "Attack on Mining Colony 7, the alien replied, his face full of worry. "The Void Fleet struck an hour ago." Jake's blood went cold. Mining Colony 7 was close to Earth's main supply routes. If the Void Fleet was attacking there, it meant they were getting bolder, more dangerous. He rushed to the command center where he found Princess Kira already there. She was still in her floating chair, but something was different about her now. Her fingers were moving rapidly across that strange device in front of her. The symbols and lights on it were changing so fast, Jake could barely follow them. "Princess," Jake said, "I need to take my ships and help defend the colony. How quickly can we launch?" Princess Kira didn't look up from her device. "Commander, if you launch now, you'll be flying into a trap." Jake frowned. "What are you talking about?" "People are dying down there. We need to help them." "Yes, people are dying," Princess Kira said, her voice calm but focused. "But if you rush in without understanding what's really happening, more people will die, including your crews." Jake felt his frustration rising again. Here was this princess, sitting safely in her chair, telling him not to go help people in danger. "Princess, with respect, I've been fighting these enemies for months. I know how they operate." For the first time since he'd arrived, Princess Kira looked directly at him. Her eyes weren't soft and innocent like he had thought before. They were sharp, intense, like she was seeing something he couldn't. "Jake, the attack on Mining Colony 7 started exactly 47 minutes ago. The colony's defenses fell in 12 minutes. The Void Fleet ships left the area 19 minutes ago." Jake stared at her. How could she know all these details? "How do you—" "Because I've been tracking every Void Fleet movement for the past 2 years," Princess Kira interrupted. "Through quantum communication networks that your ships can't detect. The attack on the mining colony wasn't their real goal." She moved her hands over the device, and suddenly the air above them filled with a 3-dimensional map of the star system. Jake had never seen anything like it. Hundreds of tiny lights moved through space, showing the location of every ship in the area. "Look," Princess Kira said, pointing to clusters of red dots. "These are Void Fleet ships. They're not heading back to wherever they came from. They're moving into position around this space station." Jake's mouth dropped open. The red dots were forming a perfect circle around them. "That's impossible. Our sensors would have detected them." "Your sensors can't see ships using quantum stealth technology," Princess Kira explained. "But our networks can track their quantum signatures. Jake, the mining colony attack was a diversion. They wanted to draw you and your ships away from here. The real target is this station." Jake felt his world spinning. Everything he thought he knew was wrong. "But why would they want to attack a diplomatic station?" Princess Kira's fingers danced across her device again. New information appeared in the holographic display. "Because this isn't just a diplomatic station. This is the central command hub for the entire sector's defense network. If they destroy it, 12 star systems lose their coordinated defenses." Jake looked at the display more carefully. He could see communication lines connecting the station to planets, other stations, and fleets throughout the region. It was like looking at the nervous system of an entire civilization. "How long have you known about this?" Jake asked quietly. "I suspected it 3 days ago when their movement patterns changed," Princess Kira replied. "I've been monitoring their communications since you arrived. They've been planning this attack for weeks." Jake felt embarrassed and amazed at the same time. "The device you've been using, it's not a toy, is it?" Princess Kira almost smiled. "It's a quantum tactical interface. It connects directly to my nervous system through neural implants. I can process information from thousands of sources at once and see patterns that would take your computers hours to find." "Neural implants?" Jake repeated. "Yes," Princess Kira said simply. "They were installed after my accident. The same crash that paralyzed my legs also damaged part of my brain. The implants were meant to help me think normally again. Instead, they gave me abilities no one expected." Jake looked at her with new eyes. The floating chair, the thin arms, the way she moved slowly. He had seen all of that as weakness. But what if it wasn't weakness at all? What if it was just different? "You can really track all their ships?" he asked. "Every single one," Princess Kira confirmed. I know where they are, how fast they're moving, and what weapons they're carrying. I've been building a complete picture of their capabilities while you've been chasing them blindly through space. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He had been fighting the Void Fleet for months, but he had been doing it like an ancient warrior, with a sword, charging at enemies he couldn't even see properly. Princess Kira had been fighting them like a chess master, thinking 20 moves ahead. "What do you need me to do?" Jake asked. Princess Kira looked surprised by the question. "You're asking for my advice?" "Princess, I came here thinking I was going to teach you about warfare, but it looks like I'm the one who needs to learn." She nodded slowly. "The Void Fleet ships will begin their attack in 18 minutes. If we use conventional tactics, putting our ships between them and the station, we'll lose. They have too many ships, and their weapons are designed to destroy exactly that kind of defense." "So what do we do?" Princess Kira's hands moved over her interface again. "We do something they won't expect. Instead of defending the station, we abandon it." Jake's eyes widened. "Abandon it? But you said this place is vital to defending 12 star systems." "It is," Princess Kira agreed. "But the station's real value isn't the building itself. It's the quantum network it controls. And that network can be transferred." She showed him another display. "In 14 minutes, I can transfer all the station's functions to a mobile command ship. The Void Fleet will attack an empty shell while our real command center escapes." Jake stared at the plan appearing in front of him. It was brilliant, completely unexpected, and required perfect timing. "Can you really do all that in 14 minutes? "I can do it in 12, Princess Kira said. "But I need your ships to be ready to provide cover when we make the transfer. Can you trust me enough to follow my plan exactly?" Jake looked at this princess he had dismissed as a weak invalid just hours before. She was offering to save thousands of lives with a strategy, more clever than anything he had ever imagined, and she was asking if he could trust her. "Princess Kira," Jake said, "I think I've been an idiot. Tell me what you need me to do." For the first time since he'd met her, Princess Kira smiled. "Commander Jake, I think this is the beginning of a very interesting partnership." The alarms were still blaring, and enemy ships were closing in, but for the first time since arriving at the station, Jake felt like they might actually have a chance to win. The next 12 minutes felt like the longest of Jake's life. He watched Princess Kira work, her fingers moving across the quantum interface faster than he thought possible. Streams of data flowed around them, and he could see information being transferred from the station to a sleek command ship that had appeared outside. "Jake," Princess Kira said without looking up, "I need you to position your fighters in formation Delta 7 around the command ship. When the transfer completes, we'll have about 30 seconds before the Void Fleet realizes what we've done." Jake spoke into his communicator. "All pilots, formation Delta 7 around the new command vessel. Prepare for immediate departure." "Commander," came a voice through the comm. "We've never practiced Delta 7. What is it?" Jake looked at Princess Kira. She was still focused on her work, but she answered his unspoken question. "It's a protective formation that creates overlapping shield coverage. Your pilots will understand once they see the pattern." Jake relayed the information, trusting that somehow Princess Kira knew what she was talking about. Over the past few days, she had been right about everything else. "Transfer at 80%, Princess Kira announced. "Jake, you need to be on the command ship now. We're leaving in 3 minutes." "What about you?" Jake asked. "I'll be right behind you. This interface needs my direct connection until the last possible moment." Jake hesitated. The idea of leaving her behind, even for a few minutes, felt wrong. But before he could argue, 2 Zephyrian guards were already moving to escort him to the command ship. The new vessel was amazing. It was smaller than the space station, but packed with technology Jake had never seen before. The bridge had the same flowing, organic design as the station, but everything felt more focused, more ready for battle. "Commander Jake," said Captain Zara, the ship's Zephyrian commander. Princess Kira designed this vessel specifically for mobile operations. Everything you see here came from her tactical plans. Jake looked around with new respect. The weapon, systems, the communication arrays, even the way the crew stations were arranged, it all showed a level of strategic thinking he was only beginning to understand. "Transfer complete," came Princess Kira's voice over the comm. "Beginning evacuation now." Through the bridge windows, Jake could see the princess's floating chair being moved quickly through a transport tube that connected the station to their ship. At the same time, his sensors showed enemy ships dropping out of stealth mode all around the station. "Void fleet attacking the station now," reported the sensor officer. Princess Kira arrived on the bridge just as the enemy ships opened fire. The space station, now empty, exploded in brilliant flashes of light. But Jake was no longer watching the destruction. He was watching Princess Kira. She had plugged her interface directly into the command ship's systems. Her eyes were closed, but her hands moved constantly across the controls. It was like she was connected to every ship in their small fleet. "Jake," she said, eyes still closed, "the enemy has realized their mistake. They're turning toward us now. 47 ships against our 12. "Not good odds," Jake muttered. "Actually, they're perfect odds," Princess Kira replied. "The Void Fleet's strength comes from surprise attacks against unprepared enemies, but we know exactly where they are and what they're going to do next." She opened her eyes and looked at Jake. "I'm going to guide this battle from here using the quantum network, but I need you to lead the fighter squadrons directly. Your pilots trust you and they'll follow your orders even in impossible situations." Jake nodded. It made sense. He was good at inspiring people and making quick decisions in combat. She was good at seeing the bigger picture and predicting enemy movements. Together they might actually have a chance. "Tell me what you need," Jake said. "The Void Fleet will try to surround us," Princess Kira explained. "When they do, I want you to punch through their weakest point with your fastest ships. Don't try to fight them. Just break through and keep going." "That sounds like running away," Jake said. Princess Kira smiled. "It is running away, but while you're running, you'll be leading them into the gravity field of that gas giant over there. The field will disrupt their stealth systems and force them to fight us ship to ship." Jake looked at the massive planet she was indicating. It was a smart plan, but it would require perfect timing. "How do you know they'll follow us?" "Because their orders are to destroy this command ship at all costs. They can't let us escape with the defense network." The battle began exactly as Princess Kira had predicted. The Void Fleet ships spread out to surround them, moving in the same patterns she had described. Jake found himself trusting her predictions completely as he guided his fighters through the enemy formation. "Break through now," Princess Kira said. "Heading 27 Mark 4. Jake's fighters punched through the enemy line and raced toward the gas giant. Behind them, the Void Fleet ships pursued exactly as Princess Kira had said they would. As they entered the planet's gravity field, something amazing happened. The enemy ships, which had been invisible to most sensors, suddenly became clearly visible. Their stealth systems couldn't handle the gravitational interference. "Now we fight them properly," Jake said, leading his ships in a sharp turn to face the enemy. But Princess Kira wasn't done surprising him. "Jake, look at your tactical display." Jake checked his screens and couldn't believe what he saw. While the enemy had been chasing them, Princess Kira had been coordinating with Zephyrian defense fleets from 3 nearby star systems. Ships were arriving from multiple directions, catching the Void Fleet in a perfect trap. The battle that followed was unlike anything Jake had ever experienced. Princess Kira coordinated the movements of over 100 ships with incredible precision. She would tell Jake where to attack, when to retreat, and how to position his fighters for maximum effect. Meanwhile, Jake inspired his pilots to perform maneuvers they had never thought possible. "Enemy flagship moving to escape vector," reported Captain Zara. "Jake," Princess Kira said, "can your squadron stop that ship?" Jake looked at the enemy flagship. It was huge, heavily armed and surrounded by escorts. A traditional attack would be suicide. But Princess Kira had been right about everything else. "What do you have in mind?" he asked. "The flagship's shields have a weak spot on the underside, but only for about 10 seconds every minute when they recharge. You'll need to approach from below, time your attack perfectly, and get out before their escorts can target you." Jake calculated the odds in his head. They were terrible. But somehow he trusted this princess who had already saved all their lives. "Twice today, squadron leaders, follow my lead," Jake announced. "We're going after the big one." The attack worked perfectly. Jake's fighters slipped under the enemy flagship just as its shields weakened. Their missiles found their target, and the massive ship exploded in a fireball that lit up the entire battle area. With their flagship destroyed, the remaining Void Fleet ships retreated into deep space. As the battle ended, Jake found himself looking at Princess Kira with complete amazement. She had just coordinated the most complex space battle he had ever seen, using tactics he never would have thought of. "How did you know their shield timing?" he asked. "I've been studying their technology for 2 years," she replied simply. "When you can't rely on physical strength, you learn to rely on knowledge instead." Jake realized something important in that moment. He had spent his whole career thinking that being a warrior meant being the strongest, the fastest, the most aggressive. But Princess Kira had shown him that the best warriors were often the smartest ones, the ones who could see possibilities that others missed. "Princess," Jake said, "I think I have a lot to learn from you." "And I have things to learn from you too, Jake. Your ability to inspire people and make them believe in impossible missions, that's something I could never do from this chair." As their ship headed back toward the rebuilt command station, Jake realized that their partnership was just beginning. Together they had capabilities that neither of them possessed alone, and somehow he suspected the Void Fleet was going to learn just how dangerous that combination could be. 3 weeks had passed since the battle at the gas giant. Jake found himself walking the corridors of the rebuilt command station, but his mind was troubled. The victory had been amazing, but it had also shown him just how much he didn't understand about himself. He had always been proud of being Earth's greatest warrior, but working with Princess Kira had made him question what it really meant to be strong. Every night, he lay awake thinking about all the battles he had fought, all the decisions he had made, and wondering how many better solutions he had missed. Tonight was different, though. Tonight, he had decided to do something he had never done before in his entire military career. He was going to apologize. Jake found Princess Kira in her private chambers, working late as usual. Her quantum interface cast a soft glow across the room, and she was studying what looked like defense plans for the entire sector. "Princess," Jake said softly, not wanting to startle her. "Do you have a moment?" She looked up and smiled. "Of course, Jake. Please, sit down." Jake took a chair across from her, but for a moment he couldn't find the words. "How do you apologize for a lifetime of wrong thinking?" "Princess, I need to say something, and I'm not sure how to say it properly." "Just speak, from your heart," she said gently. Jake took a deep breath. "When I first met you, I saw only what I expected to see. I saw someone in a floating chair, and I decided that meant you were weak. I saw someone who looked different from me, and I assumed that meant you couldn't understand the things I understood. I was completely wrong, and I'm sorry." Princess Kira was quiet for a moment, studying his face. "Jake, do you know what I saw when I first met you?" "What?" "I saw someone who had never failed at anything important. Someone who had always been the strongest person in the room. I saw someone who had never had to learn that there are different ways to be powerful." Jake frowned. "That doesn't sound like a compliment," Princess Kira laughed softly. "It wasn't meant to be, but it wasn't meant to be an insult either. It was just an observation. You came here thinking in the only way you had ever learned to think." She moved her hand over her interface, and the defense plans disappeared. Instead, the air filled with images. scenes from her life that Jake had never seen before. Let me tell you a story, Jake. When I was 16, I was the best pilot in our entire fleet. I was fast, fearless, and absolutely certain that I could handle anything. Sound familiar? Jake nodded, recognizing himself in her description. One day. We received a distress call from a civilian transport that was being attacked by pirates. I was ordered to wait for backup, but I thought I knew better. I thought my skills were enough to save everyone by myself. The images in the air showed a younger Princess Kira climbing into a sleek fighter ship. She looked confident, eager, ready to be a hero. I reached the transport ship and found it surrounded by 6 pirate vessels. I should have waited for help, but I was so sure I could win. I attacked immediately. The images showed the battle. Young Kira fought bravely, destroying 2 pirate ships and driving off 2 others. But the remaining pirates focused all their fire on her fighter. I saved the transport, Princess Kira continued. But my ship was badly damaged. I was trying to limp back to base when my engines failed. I crashed on a small moon and the impact, she gestured toward her legs. Well, you can see the result. Jake felt a chill. The accident that paralyzed you, it happened because you were trying to save people? Yes. But that's not the important part of the story, Jake. What do you mean? Princess Kira moved her interface again, and new images appeared. These showed her in a medical facility, learning to use her floating chair, struggling with the neural implants that had been installed to help her damaged brain. For months after the accident, I felt sorry for myself. I thought my life was over. I thought that because I couldn't walk, because I couldn't pilot a fighter anymore, I was useless. Jake watched the images of her rehabilitation. He could see the frustration and sadness in her younger self's face. But then something interesting happened. The neural implants that were supposed to help me think normally started doing something unexpected. They began connecting my mind to our quantum networks in ways no one had predicted. The images showed Princess Kira discovering her new abilities. Jake watched her learn to process vast amounts of information, to see patterns across entire star systems, to understand battles in ways that no one had ever understood them before. I realized that my accident hadn't ended my ability to serve my people. It had given me new abilities that were actually more powerful than my old ones. But I had to stop thinking of strength in the old way. Jake was beginning to understand. You learned that being different doesn't mean being weaker. Exactly. But more than that, I learned that my limitations forced me to find new solutions. Because I couldn't rely on speed and reflexes anymore, I had to rely on planning and intelligence. Because I couldn't inspire people through physical presence, I had to learn to inspire them through wisdom. Princess Kira closed the images and looked directly at Jake. You apologize for seeing me as weak when we first met. But Jake, most people see me that way. Even my own people sometimes forget that I'm not the fragile princess they think I am. But you've proven yourself over and over, Jake protested. Yes, but proving yourself and being understood are different things. You're not the first person to underestimate me because of how I look. The difference is that you learned to see past your first impression. Jake thought about this. How do you deal with it? People not understanding who you really are? Princess Kira smiled. I focus on the results, not the opinions. Every battle we win, every life we save, every problem we solve, those things matter more than what people think about my chair or my limitations. But doesn't it hurt when people dismiss you? Sometimes, she admitted. But I've learned something. Important, Jake. The people who matter will eventually see who you really are. The people who don't see it, well, their opinions don't change reality. Jake sat back in his chair, processing everything she had told him. Princess, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you ever miss it? Being able to pilot fighters? To be in the action directly? Princess Kira considered the question carefully. I miss some things about my old life. I miss the feeling of flying through space, the immediate excitement of combat. but I don't miss the limitations of that life. What? Limitations? When I was a pilot, I could only be in one place at a time. I could only see what was directly in front of me. I could only fight one battle at a time. Now I can coordinate dozens of battles across multiple star systems simultaneously. I can see threats and opportunities that no pilot could ever notice. She leaned forward slightly. Jake, if someone offered to give me my legs back but take away my neural implants and my connection to the quantum networks, I would say no. Jake was shocked. Really? Really? Because I'm not the same person I was before my accident. I'm not a worse version of my old self. I'm a completely different person with completely different strengths. And these new strengths let me help people in ways I never could before. Jake felt something shift in his understanding. You're saying that what happened to you wasn't just something you overcame. It was something that made you who you are now. Exactly. My limitations became my advantages, but only because I learned to work with them instead of fighting against them. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, both lost in thought. Finally, Jake spoke again. Princess, I think meeting you has changed how I see everything. Not just about disability or differences, but about strength itself. How so? I always thought strength meant being the toughest, the fastest, the most aggressive. But watching you work, seeing how your mind operates, I realized that real strength might be about adapting, learning, finding new ways to solve problems. Princess Kira nodded. And I've learned things from you too, Jake. Your ability to inspire, loyalty, to make people believe they can achieve impossible things. That's a kind of strength I respect deeply. So what does this mean for us? For our partnership? Princess Kira smiled. It means we both have things to teach each other. You're learning that strength comes in many forms. I'm learning that sometimes you need someone who can inspire people to follow you into impossible situations. Jake stood up, feeling like a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Princess Kira, I want you to know that working with you has been the most educational experience of my military career. And working with you has reminded me that wisdom without courage is just theory. You bring the courage that turns my plans into reality. As Jake walked back to his quarters that night, he realized that something fundamental had changed in how he saw the world. He no longer thought of people in terms of strong and weak, normal and different. Instead, he was beginning to see everyone as having unique combinations of abilities and challenges. Princess Kira had taught him that true leadership wasn't about being the strongest person in the room. It was about recognizing the strengths in others and finding ways to combine those strengths into something greater than any individual could achieve alone. 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the newest command station, watching ships from dozens of different worlds working together in perfect harmony. The sight still amazed him every day. The combined human-Zephyrian fleet had become something no one had expected. They hadn't just defeated the Void Fleet, they had revolutionized how space battles were fought. Other civilizations were sending representatives to learn their methods. Impressive, isn't it? Princess Kira said, floating up beside him. Her chair moved silently across the deck, and Jake had learned to appreciate the graceful way she navigated through space. It's incredible, Jake replied. A year ago, I thought I understood everything about military strategy. Now I feel like I'm learning something new every day, Princess Kira smiled. That's because you stopped thinking you had all the answers. The moment you opened your mind to different possibilities, you became twice as effective as a commander. Jake looked at the tactical displays showing their joint operations. Human ships provided aggressive firepower and inspiring leadership, while Zephyrian vessels offered advanced technology and strategic coordination. But more than that, the crews were learning from each other. You know what surprises me most? Jake said. It's not just that our different approaches work well together, it's that mixing them created entirely new strategies that neither of us had thought of before. That's the real power of true cooperation. Princess Kira agreed. When people with different strengths work together respectfully, they don't just add their abilities, they multiply them. A young human officer approached them. Commander Jake, Princess Kira, we have representatives from the Crystalline Confederacy requesting a meeting. They want to learn about our joint command structure. Schedule it for tomorrow afternoon, Princess Kira replied. And make sure Captain Rivera and Commander Chen are there. They've become excellent examples of cross-species leadership. As the officer left, Jake reflected on how much had changed. Captain Rivera had been one of his most traditional officers, someone who had initially struggled with taking orders from an alien princess. Now she was one of Princess Kira's most trusted advisors, and her tactical innovations had saved dozens of ships. I've been thinking about something, Jake said. When other military leaders ask me what made our alliance so successful, I'm never sure how to explain it. What do you tell them? I tell them it started when I stopped seeing you as different and started seeing you as capable. But that feels too simple. Princess Kira considered this. Maybe simple is better. Most people overcomplicate cooperation. They think it requires complex treaties and detailed agreements, but real cooperation starts with respect. Respect for what? Respect for the idea that other people might know things you don't. Respect for the possibility that different doesn't mean inferior. Respect for the chance that your way might not be the only good way. Jake nodded, watching a group of mixed human and Zephyrian pilots preparing for a training exercise. You know, my pilots tell me they've learned as much from your people as they have from me. And my strategic officers say the same about learning. From your leadership style. That's exactly what should happen when different cultures work together properly. An alarm chimed softly, indicating an incoming priority message. Princess Kira checked her interface and smiled. Jake, you'll want to hear this. It's from the Galactic Defense Council. The message played on the main display. A distinguished alien official spoke in formal diplomatic language, but the content was exciting. The Council was officially recognizing their joint command structure as the new standard for interspecies military cooperation. They were being asked to train officers from 12 different civilizations. Congratulations, Princess, Jake said. Your tactical innovations are going to help protect the entire galaxy. Our innovations, Jake. None of this would have worked without your ability to inspire people and build trust between different groups. Jake felt a deep sense of satisfaction, but also humility. A year ago, I thought success meant winning battles by being stronger than the enemy. Now I understand that real success means creating something better than what existed before. Princess Kira moved her chair to face him directly. Jake, can I tell you something I've never told anyone else? Of course. When you first arrived here, I was prepared for you to be like every other traditional military commander I dealt with. Polite on the surface, but ultimately dismissive of anyone who didn't fit their idea of what a warrior should look like. Were you disappointed that I lived up to your expectations? Princess Kira laughed. Actually, yes. For the first few days, I thought you were going to be just another narrow-minded soldier who couldn't see past his own assumptions. What changed your mind? The moment you asked me what I needed you to do during the station evacuation. Most people in your position would have tried to take control or give me orders. But you recognized that I knew something you didn't, and you were willing to follow my lead. Jake remembered that moment. It had felt like admitting defeat at the time, but it had actually been the beginning of everything good that followed. I think that was the first time in my career I admitted I might be wrong about something important, Jake said. And it was. The first time I had worked with someone who was strong enough to change their mind when presented with new information, Princess Kira replied. They were interrupted by Captain Zara, who approached with a data tablet. Princess Commander, we have the final statistics from the joint training exercises. Princess Kira reviewed the numbers and smiled. Jake, look at this. Mixed human-Zephyrian crews are performing 30% better than single-species crews in complex scenarios. That's incredible, Jake said, reading over the data. But I'm not surprised. When you put different perspectives together, you get solutions that no one would have found alone. Captain Zara nodded. The most interesting part is that both species are individually performing better too. Humans are becoming more strategic, and Zephyrians are becoming more adaptable under pressure. After Captain Zara left, Jake and Princess Kira stood in comfortable silence, watching their combined fleet prepare for another joint mission. Ships that had once been enemies or strangers were now working together like parts of a single organism. "Princess," Jake said finally, "I want to thank you for something." "What's that?" "You taught me that being a good leader isn't about being the smartest or strongest person in the room. It's about creating an environment where everyone can contribute their best abilities." Princess Kira smiled. "And you taught me that wisdom without action is just philosophy. You showed me how to turn good ideas into real results by inspiring people to believe in them." "So what's next for us?" Jake asked. "Next, we keep learning," Princess Kira replied. "Every new species we work with will teach us something different. Every challenge we face will require us to grow and adapt." Jake looked out at the stars, feeling excited about the future in a way he had never experienced before. "You know what I love most about our partnership?" "What?" "A year ago, I thought I had reached the peak of my abilities. I thought I knew everything I needed to know about leadership and warfare. Working with you showed me that growth never has to stop." Princess Kira nodded. "That's the most important lesson of all, Jake. The moment we think we've learned everything, we stop being useful to the people who depend on us." As they prepared to return to their duties, Jake reflected on the journey that had brought them here. He had come to this station as a warrior who measured success in terms of victories and defeats. He was leaving as a leader who understood that the greatest victories came from building something better together than either side could have achieved alone. "Princess Kira," Jake said as they walked toward the command center, "I'm grateful that I was too ignorant to appreciate your abilities when we first met." She looked at him curiously. "Why?" "Because if I had understood how remarkable you were from the beginning, I might not have learned how much I needed to change. Sometimes the best education comes from discovering how wrong you've been." "Princess," Kira laughed. "Jake, I think that might be the wisest thing you've ever said." As they entered the command center together, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them, both of them knew that their partnership had become something much more important than either of them had imagined. They had created a model for how different people could work together not just successfully, but transformatively. The alliance between the human warrior and the alien princess had become proof that strength comes in many forms, that leadership can be learned and shared, and that the greatest achievements happen when people stop seeing differences as barriers and start seeing them as opportunities to build something extraordinary.